Sanjeev, I will start with you first, considering that you're somebody who studied the Congress for a longest time. Do you think there is talk about opposition unity, like my colleague Ajit was talking about? Do you think this entire caste census has become the kernel or the fulcrum around which opposition unity can at least come together? Because ideologically, there are several differences, as it were, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Sudha. Yes, I think I agree with Ajit on this, that this can become the fulcrum, simply because, this is not the first time an attempt has been made by opposition parties to come together. But it has simply fallen flat because the only common string between all opposition parties has been their opposition to the BJP. There has been nothing ideological related to why the opposition parties have been coming together in the past. This time it's different because there seems to be some common meeting ground. And even though, the whole issue of caste census is something that can easily get out of hand, opposition parties seem to be finding this issue as a glue for them to come together. So I agree with Ajit that even though they have sounded the bugle just before the Karnataka elections, but actually the aim is much larger. The aim is the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, and they feel that this is a good way to counter the BJP, because you always see Prime Minister Narendra Modi talking about himself coming from the backward classes.
Right.
So this will be a very powerful way for the opposition not just to come together, but also to counter that narrative that has been built by the BJP and Prime Minister Modi.
Sanjeev, if you remember, what Ajit was saying, moving closer towards Mandal Kamandal, although Rajiv Gandhi called it, Mandal, a can of worms. You remember Kashi Ram's slogan where he said in the 1980s, Jiski jitni sankhya bhari, uski utni hissedari. That's what he said. Do you think the Congress is now slowly and steadily moving closer to the Mandal brand of politics, which it once rejected vehemently, Sanjeev?
Well, Sudha, you see, there is a language of opposition and there is a language of the government. Whoever is in government, they will always find reasons to oppose this for various reasons, better known to all of us, and it's been there in the public domain for the past few years as well. And this debate had come up even the last time around when UPA was in power.
Yes.
But for the opposition, this entire language changes because you're in the opposition. You can always raise demands. Like in the previous Karnataka elections, there was a demand to give Lingayats a separate entity. So, these kind of demands come up if you are in the opposition, and it's very easy to make this demand and put the center under pressure. But actually, as our panelists have pointed out, it is opening a Pandora's box. And what Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar actually envisioned, he wanted to end this caste-based reservation after a few decades. But what we are seeing is that instead of political parties and politicians actually focusing on creating more employment and jobs, we are seeing that everybody wants to just take refuge under this caste-based reservation and make sure that whatever jobs are available within that, only how to keep their own constituencies happy. So this is not a very healthy sign for India as a democracy. Yes, caste is important, I agree, but then we need to move beyond it. And for that, we cannot hold only the opposition party responsible. Because when the BJP was in opposition, similar kind of demands would also have been raised.
Sanjeev, I shall give you the last word. Tell me something, and I keep saying this, you watched the Congress party for the longest time as a practicing journalist. So I'm asking you that why is it that despite expansive discussion on caste census, even in Udaipur and in several other occasions, I'm talking about contemporary history, not 1950 or 1961, why is it that there are so many voices apparently which came to oppose it? What is it that was actually binding the Congress's hands at that time which has changed now?
So as I said, when you're in government, you speak a different language, and when you're in opposition, you speak a different language. Therefore, this is not a good situation to be in if you are in the government. And at that time also, I remember Veerappa Modi was at the center of the controversy and there was a very famous statement that what is India without caste? Then this whole conversation happened. The problem actually is that the data is available, but there have been multiple entries for the number of castes, etc. So what that has led to is that even though there are, let's say, 2,000 castes in the central list, but because the people who are collecting the data did not have a centralized or a fixed template for caste, they have actually ended up collecting castes in thousands. Therefore, it's very tough to actually match the data and put it together, and that is a humongous exercise, which is why the UPA put it aside. And even though, when the Modi government came, there was a committee set up under Mr. Arvind Panagadia, but no meetings ever took place. So, that's just been gathering dust. So that's what it is. That, the first time the exercise was carried out, it was not carried out properly. And this time again, the government is saying that they are not in a position to carry out this exercise because it's a huge exercise. So, in terms of practicality, there is a problem for the government. But when you look at it politically, it is very convenient for the opposition to raise this issue now and say that, look, you're sitting on it, why don't you do something about it?